former federal prosecutor there, legal analyst, who knows a thing or two about this case. He joins me. We've spoken a lot about it before. You just watched our interview there with the DA in L.A., Nathan Hochman here. It seems like, from having just spoken to him, the approach is the same. It does not seem like they are modifying anything in their strategy. They seem quite confident there in Hochman's office, don't they?
They do, Andrew, and you're absolutely right. It seems like Hochman is stuck on the position because Eric and Lyle Menendez have not accepted responsibility for what they did. And it's tough for them to do so right now because, of course, they have that habeas petition pending. And if they say that they didn't act in self-defense, then that really tanks that. It's really unclear what Hochman's position is if Eric and Lyle Menendez were to sit down or even send him a letter and say that, we killed our parents because they were abusing us and we wanted revenge and we were upset. There's no legal basis to engage in that type of vigilante justice, but maybe there's some sort of moral justification for standing up against our abuser. I don't know if that would be enough for Hochman's office to reconsider their position on this resentencing.
I guess just from the outside looking in, a first-degree murder conviction is essentially an admission, if you will. I just have to ask, if he never gets the, I don't want to say confession, but the, taking responsibility, in his words, from Lyle and Eric, would that do it, just that? And then all of this would change, do you think? Or would there be more that he would need?
It seems like that's what he's stuck on. And, whether it's his press conference a few weeks ago or his interview today, Hochman keeps talking about Sirhan and that particular case where Newsom said that parole was not appropriate because he never accepted responsibility for assassinating Senator Kennedy. So, everything that Hochman has talked about really doesn't touch upon the other issues, the abuse that they suffered. If they're released, are they going to pose an unreasonable risk? May they harm people? How have they been as inmates in prison? Yeah. All those other factors do support the resentencing, Andrew. It's really that one lack of admission or accepting responsibility that he seems stuck on. So I don't know if there's some way for the defense and the DA's office to bridge that gap. Because if so, if I were Eric and Lyle Menendez, I would absolutely do that to try to get the DA on board with this recommendation.
Right. I mean, that's the point I'm making. Essentially, haven't they already done it, in these formal proceedings? There's a conviction. They acknowledge they did it. Accepting responsibility, to me, seems like semantics, the language of it. It would kind of present itself as one in the same. And it doesn't seem like Nathan Hochman is allowing for that.
I think Nathan Hochman wants to know why and how they did it. If they were to say, we plotted and planned this and we were really upset and we actually despised and hated our parents and for the abuse that we suffered for years and years and years at the hands of our father, Jose, and our mother really turned a blind eye, was complicit in all this. That is the reason we went to San Diego. We bought the firearms. We shot Jose, we reloaded, we killed Kitty. I think he wants that pound of flesh, Nathan Hochman. After all these years, for the brothers to just lay it out on the table, as opposed to these different stories they've said over time. The mob hit, Jose was sexually assaulting the girlfriend of one of the brothers. That seems to be something that is really problematic for him. And I think if the brothers were to maybe lay it out in a different way, maybe we'd have a different result here.
So on the flip side of that, let's go to the other side of this story with the brothers themselves, their attorney, Mark Geragos, and their family members. Are they getting too bullish on the prospects of resentencing, do you think, after yesterday?
I think they are bullish because all signs seem to point to them potentially being resentenced. So maybe they have a strong hand and they don't necessarily want to come forward with this admission or confession because they think that the resentencing will happen regardless of what they say or do. It does seem to appear like that train has left the station. Obviously, Hochman tried to pull it back. We know that Gascon initiated it. It's not something the defense can do. A judge or a prosecutor has to. initiate resentencing. And now that that's happened, I think it's too late for Hochman's office to really rescind that recommendation. So we're going to see next week what a judge is going to do. But it sounds like he's going to really consider this.
So, Neama, the resentencing question itself, I mean, they're serving life in prison without the possibility of parole. If they were granted a resentencing or any resentencing, I mean, what would that even look like? Would they get life in prison with the possibility of parole? Would they, have time served? They've been in there for well over 35 years here. What would that even look like, a new sentence?
There's two possibilities, Andrew. The first is time served, which I think is unlikely. And if so, their brothers would be released in a matter of days. But even George Gascon didn't go that far. He recommended a sentence of 50 to life. Why is that important? Because the brothers were youthful offenders under California law, if they've served half of their sentence or 25 years, they're immediately eligible for parole. And of course, the brothers have served 35 years. Now, the parole board is a little backed up here in California, but probably within the next several months, they will have a parole board hearing. And we know that Governor Newsom has already initiated the risk assessment process where an expert comes in and says, do the brothers pose an unreasonable risk to the public? Now, that's just a recommendation to the parole board, and the parole board can accept or reject it. And the parole board itself makes a recommendation on release. And that recommendation goes to Governor Newsom's desk. And this is why each state's law is important. Under California law, it's really up to the governor to accept or reject the parole board's recommendations. So it's going to be Newsom who decides whether the brothers stay in prison or not. And unlike other states, for instance, we've talked about the Selena murder case. In that particular case in Texas, the parole board has the ultimate say, but that's not how it works here in California.
All right, Neama Rahmani, we're going to have to leave it at that. Neama, thanks for guiding us through this pretty complicated legal headline, still though very attention-grabbing. Neama, have a good rest of your weekend.